Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. So when I got asked to speak, I can confirm the word. The Lord's like, I want to do a shift. The word was shift. And you're not bringing the shift, Kim. You're a part of the shift. So we're a part of the shift in here. Whatever God is doing, he's using every single one of us in here to bring that in. And it's going to start here. Before I give you, because I felt the word from the Lord, I will give you my testimony because it is part of the shift. I believe I have paid a heavy price to be a part of the shift. If God is using you to shift where we are right now in the world, you have paid a heavy price. Anyone that says that there is no cross to carry when you're called by God to be a part of the shift is not part of the shift. They don't know their God. Because I've paid a pretty price, a heavy price to be here and to say yes to the shift. And this testimony is part of it. Phoenix is my son. Yes, his name is Phoenix. Resurrection life, however you want to say it. The Lord told me to call him that when he was in my womb. And he said, Kim, I want you to give me this child. And I said, well, it's yours, Lord. He's yours. He's like, no, I want you to give him to me. Well, Lord, he's yours. No, Kim, do you trust me with him? I knew by the sound of his voice that he was going to have to walk out something hard. I just knew it. We were going to have to, something about Phoenix was going to have to live up to his name. Something about, and I had to be a part of it. Like Mary looking at like Jesus on the cross. I had to stand by. Now, I thought I was giving my son to be a missionary to a very hard country, a very hard mission field, maybe martyrdom. That's how it felt to me. It's like, because he was trying to say even then, Kim, I need your hand to always be open and Phoenix to always be in the middle of it, but hand stays open. Trust me with him. So we would go through, and I'm not going to lie. I didn't have fear. I was just a helicopter mom. I was just careful. I like to call it careful, not fearful. Whatever, right? Whatever works. So all through his life, I'm like, no, you can't spend a night over there. No, you can't cross the street. No, you can't go walk the dog outside. What if this happens? Because I always felt something was going to happen. Something was there. As you can already see, there was already a prophetic gift. So I knew, I could feel it. And the Lord is like, you can't, whatever's coming, you can't do anything about it. It's coming, but you have to trust me when it does. I'm there. I'm there. So you just be in tuned, be connected to me, because whatever's coming, you need to be very close to me, or it's going to take you out. That's for somebody in here. You better get close to him, because the world is shaking. We are in a shake. We're not in a cruise time. We are in a wartime. We are. I'm called to be a wartime leader, and I had to go through war to actually be a wartime leader. So I'm not here to say we're about to go cruise shipping it. When you said march into new beginnings, whoever said, it's a march. Who marches? Soldiers. You don't have to march on a cruise ship. You're laying there with a little Mai Tai and a little umbrella in the drink. No, that's not where we're at. We need to be marching. We're in a war, and everything that can be shaken right now in our world will be shaken. So let me tell you what happened when everything was shaken that could be shaken. So 2 months after Phoenix had this event finally hit our lives, I was in prayer again. Now, you have to understand, I had just gone through a series, like 3 or 4 years of betrayal. Who hasn't experienced betrayal in here? Who hasn't experienced rejection? Who hasn't experienced abandonment by people that you thought were very close, that you could trust, maybe even family members? Come on, we all have. And if we're smart, we know that's the enemy. We know he's trying to take us out. He wants to get us bitter because bitter can't hear God. If you were bitter, ma'am, and you're like, you don't know why you can't hear God, that is why you can't hear God. So the Lord said there's something coming around the pike that I need your heart to be clean of bitterness. Because if you can't, you won't hear what I am doing. And it is life or death. Bitterness can't feel or hear the Holy Spirit. It grieves him. He can't live there. They don't commingle. And so I had to, 2 months, I was in prayer. Lord, help me with this bitterness. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get dislodged from it. It was like, yeah, but she said. Yeah, but what she did was. And what I said. And why am I always the one to? Does that sound familiar? Just to show y'all that I'm real, human too. So I'm like, I cannot stop ruminating about these things in my life. Now, maybe you have experienced since childhood multiple, plethora, big buffet banquet of betrayals. I get you. I get you. By the way, the Lord's going to heal sex abuse in here. He's going to heal trauma here today. Because he's saying you have to let that go. That bitterness, you don't want it. And you've been asking me for freedom, but it's actually going to happen today. So, yes. So, I'm praying, and I feel the Lord again. Will you give me your son? Yes, Lord. Like Peter, you know I love you, Lord. Oh, of course I love you, Lord. No, will you give me your son? Yes, Lord. Do you trust me? And this was even more, there was more of a tone on it. Do you trust me with your son? Yes, Lord, I do. Then, okay, we're going to walk this road of bitterness. So for 2 months, I was just letting the Lord heal me of bitterness. And I'm not going to lie, folks, because we need to kind of talk real about stuff like this. I was raging. I'm not like, oh, heal me, Lord. I'm going to speak scriptures over myself every day, and it's going to look great. I was raging to where I almost was like, I'm kind of scared for my soul right now because he's like, I'm bringing it up. Some of y'all, he's bringing it up, and you're like, no, because it makes me act unchristian. No. And he's like, that's me. I can't release anything you can't confront. And you can't confront it without me being there. So when I bring up the molestation, or I bring up your mother's abandonment, or I bring up your father's sex addiction, or I bring up whatever it is, I'm telling you, I'm there with you, but I have to bring it up. And you keep Christianizing it down. I'm not allowing scriptures to heal it like that right now. Because I need it to come up so I can take it out. And he says, Kim, I'm going to take it out for 3 days. I'm going to bring up stuff from your past. 3 days. And I felt like I was in hell. And if he wouldn't have said, I'm there with you and I'm doing it, I would have bailed. And bailed with scripture. And bailed with prayer meetings. And bailed while serving in hospitality at church. I would have bailed. Because we know how to do Christian bails around here. But he didn't want that. He's like, I want your heart. So I was, and I was effing. We got to talk frank. I was mad because those things I haven't thought about, those things I haven't allowed been to feel for so long. I was like, how in the F could you let this happen? How? You're God. Where were you? Right there. So for 3 days, to the point where I was like, actually, now that I'm looking at it all, I feel abandoned by you all of a sudden, and I'm going to go and just be, I'm just going to go be a stripper in Vegas. That's how angry I got at God. You know what God said? I'm not joking, too. This is just how he talks to me. Maybe you, maybe not. He said, really, Kim? Really? You for real right now? Yeah, I kind of am. And then 30 minutes later, okay, I'm not. I just said that because I'm mad. But you got to understand, that's a huge part of this testimony. Because when my son had an event where he went down with a cardiac arrest, just taking a bike around the block, and he has no heart genetics, we didn't take the vax, blah, 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 blah. We don't know, even to this day, we know it's just Satan. I wouldn't have been able to hear him in the cop car when they're saying he's dead. We have a dead boy, and he's been dead for 57 minutes. I wouldn't have been able to hear that and say, no, he's not. Why? Because bitterness wasn't in me anymore, and I could hear the Holy Spirit. That's why. I would have freaked out. I would have been, wait, I just went through this huge thing of giving you everything that I felt like you've allowed to happen to me, and now you're taking away my biggest joy in life, the only thing I've ever done well. Phoenix was a 4.3 GPA student at St. Paul's. I was a failure in high school. I don't even know how I made it to LSU. I drank I don't even remember being at LSU. All right? If we're real, that's pre-Jesus. And he was my rule father, my sweet kid, my sweet boy, my one that showed Jesus' love to me, who made me want to be a better person. And here I am, he's dead, he's gone. So I was out of my mind for a second. But I had done the work that God told me to. He prepared me, just like he prepares all of you if you will listen. I'm trying to do something for you. And I'm not promising you that there's not going to be something shaken off your life a week from now. But I'm prepared. You're here to prepare for it. You're here to be able to deal with it and conquer. You're here to be able to speak to things as though they are when they are not. Cop calls. We had just came back from a week of college tours, of being offered scholarships. University of Alabama, Chapel Hill, you name it. Phoenix was looking at it all. And he was in the car with me, his sister, his grandmother. Poor Phoenix. He had, a road trip with a bunch of women. I just think he was just done. And so, because of that, the next day, my husband was going to his wood shop, which he owns Bigler Woodworks in Covington, and he had to finish up some front doors for some folks. Phoenix, being Phoenix, a very brilliant mind, mechanical engineering type of mind, he didn't want his first car just to be something we bought. He wanted to restore a Porsche 944 as his first car. So he had gotten his license and haven't even driven his car yet because he was still reupholstering it. He was still sanding it. He was still making sure, he was still rebuilding the engine. So he's like, I've had enough women for the day. I'm going to Dad's shop, Mom. And I said, no, you're not. There's a heat advisory, son. He's like, I don't actually care what it is. I'm so desperate. I got to get out of here. And I know me, so I'm like, yeah, I can I want to run away from myself too sometimes. And he's like, Mom, I've been in St. Paul's band. I'm a marching wolf. We know how to like do all the, the fans and the electrolytes and the things around the neck and the ice cubes and the this and the that. And my dad's and my husband said, Kim, he'll be fine. We've been doing this. I'm like, okay. And I remember when I was struggling with Phoenix, I was like, yeah, again, helicopter bomb. Phoenix, you're not going to go. There's a heat advisory. You're not going to go. And we just got back from a trip. I need you to do laundry. He goes, Mom, you need to let me go. He said it in a way that the Lord asked for my son. I know the tone. I know when it's God. You have to let me go. I've been for 17 years shielding him whatever was about to go down. I had a restless feeling. Mothers know stuff. I had a restless feeling all day long. I don't cook. I know it's Louisiana. I know there's a bunch of grannies in here, but I can't cook. Y'all gonna have to help me out. I just, but I can order up some good food somewhere. I'll tell you that. So I remember going, I know what I'll do to get them home early. I'm going to cook something that's not like, TV trays. And I always burn the brownies still, but whatever. And so I'm cooking, and it's like around 5 o'clock, and I was like, honey, I'm cooking. He goes, oh, you're cooking. And I'm like, yeah, so y'all come home and start wrapping it up. So he was. I was like, is Phoenix good? Yeah, Phoenix is fine. He did a lot of stuff on his car. And so around 6 o'clock, I'm feeling something. And I call, where's Phoenix? He goes, chill out. He just took the bike around the block because he was, I'm just closing up shop. Your bike, my bike is never there. And it was there. And he goes, he just took it around the block and he was going to be back in like 5 minutes. And I went, no. You let him on the bike? He's like, chill out. It's a bike. I'm like, you let him go on a bike by himself? Chill out. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I hung up the phone, 1 minute later, Lieutenant Masters calls me. Something happened to Phoenix. I know. The only thing I said was, is he dead or alive? He said, I don't know. I said, what happened? I don't know. He was found in the back alley of the Southern Hotel. It's a miracle somebody found him. And I went, what? I don't understand. He's like, I go, well, I don't have a car. My husband, for whatever reason, took it. Can you come get me? Yes. So he came and got me. All I can tell you is that I was in a state of shock. I wouldn't call panic. I just was in it is a fight or flight. And I'm telling you, the only thing I can articulate this is I was in a fight or flight, but it was a wedge in between two walls that were faith and fear. That's what it was. And I just remember going, oh my gosh. And my daughter's like, what's happening? And, so we get into the cop car. And I was like, Lieutenant, is he dead or alive? Now, he lied. And I know Lieutenant Masters, he never lies. He never lies. And he lied, which is the first miracle. Because it gave me faith to believe it wasn't done. I said, I kept saying, is he dead or alive? He said, I don't know. Then I went, okay, then there's hope. He was dead. It was coming over the radio and the Bluetooth. I just couldn't hear it, which was God too. I couldn't hear it. So I'm in a cop car, and I just remember going, oh my gosh, this is my worst fear come to pass. Oh my gosh, what? This is my pride and joy. Oh, my Phoenix. And then all of a sudden, a still small voice said, Kim, you can choose faith right now, or fear. But you can't walk in both. And whatever you choose is going to take you under. It's going to take you under. So choose now. And it was it was not a hurried voice. It was very calm. It was very still, but it was very sure, if you know what I mean. So I just squealed out kind of faith. And then all of a sudden, I'm trying to be very real because I hate when people start getting Christianese about stuff. I need to be real for folks that need to see a miracle. I was out of my mind. All I know, and you're like, oh, well, you had so much faith. No, I didn't. When I said faith and I chose, something rose up inside of me that connected to something that was coming into the car, and it gave me a gift of faith. I don't walk around in a gift of faith. Miracles haven't followed me everywhere I've gone in life, but in that moment, I believe for the impossible. And it's not because I had it before. It's because I agreed with someone, and he gave me to faith to see what he wanted me to see. Ma'am, speaking to the rock. That's what I'm saying. He wasn't removing this for me. I had to speak something in the spirit for it to move. So, I had to hear from Lieutenant what I said, because I went out of my mind at that moment. He said, all I know, and this is what he said, all I know is I carry a badge, I carry guns, I carry mace, I've got a protective shield, I got a bulletproof vest, I got a knife. I wear practical heavy armor every day. You took out a sword. He saw it. That was bigger than anything we have ever been allowed to carry on the force. You had weapons. You had a shield. But he talked about this sword that came out, and I started speaking life over my son's dead body. I started speaking life to his brain and life into the situation. And then he said, and you have to understand, this guy was not with the Lord at the time. And he certainly hadn't seen anything like this before. And he said, then you started saying, Lord, he's not done. He's going to speak to millions and see many come in for you. So he can wake them up. And so I just speak, in whatever scriptures I remembered, that he said they were just coming out left and right. So all of a sudden, we're like going 130 miles per hour to the hospital. And you would think when I got to the hospital, I would just run out the car, but I was there just rocking. And I just remember saying, it's done. And I needed to see something before I walked in there, because what I was going to face was everything that was going to challenge what I just felt from the Lord. That's a word for all of y'all in here. What you are seeing can look completely opposite of what God is wanting to do and what he actually will do. And so I walked in there, and everyone was crying, and I remember that bothered me. Everybody was like, I'm so sorry. Don't tell me sorry. My son is alive. Don't hug me. No one is dead. Get away from me. It was almost like the faith, like if you don't have faith, get the hell out. Literally, the hell out of here. I hated to be mean, but I had my shield up, my sword. I'm not little Kim anymore. Well, I'm little Kim for the Lord, not the rapper Lil Kim, you know what I'm saying. But anyway, that's a whole nother sermon. But I was like warrior mode. And when you're on the battlefield of Afghanistan, you talk to these military guys, don't hug a military guy when he's in the middle of battle. You don't hug a military person. You don't cry on their laps when they're trying to defeat enemies. You get out there. get out the way. Or grab a gun and grab what God gave you and come with me. But there was no gray area for me. So I go in there, and my husband is grieving my son like he's gone. And I'm not going to lie. I was like, you need to either get your butt out of here, or you need to go sit in a corner and cry somewhere. But he is not dead. I don't care if you don't believe me. Then get out. I mean, even my husband was like, you threw me out of the room. This is like where people go to tell their loved ones that they're gone, and you threw me out of the loved one. You threw me out of the grief room. I was like, well, he deserved it. So then I see Phoenix being wheeled into another room, and he's blue. He's purple everywhere. I just didn't care. People, the chief, the fire department, all the nurses were lined up in the wall, looking down, crying. And I said, he's not dead. So I don't know who the doctor is. I can't tell the doctor to keep going. So all I could do is go into this room where grieving parents go. Here I am in the room, but he's not dead. Hope the doctor knows that. And I'm just sitting there. It seemed like eternity. And the doctor came in, and he said, your son is a very, 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 very sick little boy. But he's not saying he's dead. He goes, we went past the protocols. I found out later. This is what's so great about this miracle, is that the cops and the hospital have records of it. Because they have to. Minute by minute, what happened on the detail. So it's documented. Nobody can tell me it didn't happen. So the doctor said, we went past protocol. So much so, even the first responders at the Southern Hotel said, we stopped working on them. We didn't put on the lights. We didn't drive 130 miles to the hospital. We just put him in there, and the only reason he didn't go to the coroner's office is because I was just made the chaplain of the Covington Police Department a few weeks before that, and they said, wait, that's our chaplain's son. The only reason they took out his wallet that he had in front and back, Phoenix Bigler, wait, Bigler, that's our new chaplain. You can't take him to the coroner. We have to do a due diligence and bring him to the hospital. Then they'll call it. Then we bring to the coroner. I always said, why am I the chaplain of the Covington PD? I don't even understand what I'm at. They don't even listen to me. I've never been a cop before in my life. I've never been in service. I've never been in the military. That they don't trust no one unless you are one of them. I'm a woman. I mean, I could be anything. Why? The moment Phoenix was in my stomach, and I said, yes, Lord, I trust you. That's why. Because when I said, yes, Lord, you can have him, he already hooked up the chaplain job 17 years before. You're wondering, I'm going off now on what I wasn't going to say. You're wondering why something hasn't happened yet? Things need to align. If that would have happened before that, and I hadn't come into this wild door opening, which I really still to this day don't know why it did, it saved my son's life. He was so gone that they were going to bring him to the coroners, not the hospital, and that's where the ultimate miracle happened. The guy said, the doctor said, we tried, and I read the report. We put those handles on them several times. So they went past protocol, which that was miracle number 2. They kept fighting when all seemed lost. But then he said, and we were done, we have quit. And I heard one more time. I said, are you a believer? He goes, well, I believe God, he did that. I believe there's a God. But I felt one more time. After all seemed lost. After all was lost. 3 days in a tomb. Stinking grave clothes were starting to form. That's when he heard, one more time. And I just did it, and that's when Phoenix came back. The first miracle was that the lieutenant lied to me. I always will say, you lied to me. It was the best lie I've ever been told in my life. Most effective one, too. Most productive. Number 2, there was a lady at the Southern Hotel says, I never go home that way. And he's in an alley. It's Sunday. Why would anybody go through this alley on a Sunday? She says, I was at this, and I felt an urgency, go behind in the alley. Go this way, now, urgent. She said, God told me to go that way, and I saw your son with the St. Paul socks on his feet. And I knew it was somebody's boy that really shouldn't be here. He's out of his element. That was miracle number 2. Miracle number 3 was the doctors hearing one more time. So, make a long story short, I had to fight doctors after that. Not the one who saved his life, but when we went over to Ochsner. He was still battling for his life. I had to know that I heard God on something. And you start feeling crazy because no one around you, even my husband at the time, it took him a week to figure out that this is what God was doing. He was still grieving his death. And they're like, you're not being compassionate. We need to take him off life. You got to take off life support. This is not good care. This is not healthy care. This is not compassionate care. We need to take him off nutrients. I'm like, over my dead body, you will. You will keep him on. Then they brought in palliative care. Ma'am, this is the best thing for your son. You know, we want your son to have a quality of life. Then let him live. Then let him live. Well, we see families all the time, and I understand. Moms come up to me all the time. I had that faith. I prayed that they would survive, and God took them anyway. And all I can say to you, and all I could say to them was, whether I live or die, it's Christ's gain. I don't know. I don't ultimately know why he takes some and leaves others. What I do know is that he's on the throne. He didn't get off. He knew what it was. And for whatever reason, he said it would give me more glory. I don't know. Because I always get those mothers. And you know what? Those mothers end up being my biggest prayer warriors. How can you still believe when you believed for your own and it didn't come to pass? And they said, that's where the glory is. How do I still believe? How am I still standing? How do I come back to a church like this and believe for somebody else's healing when he took mine? You've got to understand, we are just puzzle pieces in his bigger design for the kingdom on earth, and we don't get to author our lives. Either he is or we are, and we'll have different results. But whether he takes away, gives or takes away, it is to his glory for the believer. For the believer. And you just have to make peace with that at some point. There has to be peace. So I had to fight, and I had to fight the doctors, the nurses, and finally, when I thought maybe I was going crazy because now exhaustion sets in, and that's usually when you go, am I crazy? It's usually when you're exhausted. Faith is low. So I was like, am I crazy after 2 weeks? Am I crazy? Meanwhile, I'm speaking over Phoenix. I'm telling Phoenix, look, you better get your butt up. Trust me. Y'all already know I'm gritty already right now, okay? So that's just how we roll, all right, at my house. So I'm up. I mean, he is like half dead, half alive, and I'm going, you better get your butt up. And I know Phoenix being the rule follower is like, I better get my butt up. But I had to fight with the words of life. And God gave me a word that I'm going to close and share with you of what he gave me, because I said, okay, I know I heard, but I need to hear. I need it from your word now. What does your word say? And I don't mean by your stripes are healed for everybody. Name it, claim it, everybody gets healed, nobody dies, nobody suffers. No. What are you saying to me? What is your will in this situation? I need to know that. So I'm going to give you that. Because that's a word for somebody in here. But I had to fight and fight until I said, Lord, they're about to take him all off and bypass what I think. You've got to show them he's still here, Lord. And I felt the same kind of way that God, I got you. I got you. So they're making their rounds. I think it's like day 12. They're making their rounds. And they're circling his bed. And there's this one doctor that can feel like us. Like I just feel her really wanting to see something change. She was the doctor that day. He'll give you who you need at the right time. And she's doing her rounds. And you got to understand, one of our superpowers outside of the authority of the Holy Spirit is humor, if you haven't heard, understood where I come from. We've laughed through some really dark things in life. And it has been a saving grace. It is the balm of Gilead to me. We can laugh through anything. We laugh that we have a lot of humor in our house. Phoenix had the same humor. He gets it from me and his dad. And Ben and I were kind of having humor around. We're like, is this okay to be laughing right now? Like our son's like fighting for his life and we're like laughing. And they're all around there, like there's like so many people, 15 people. And they're looking at Phoenix. And they're like, well, he doesn't really have much reaction. Down, just so everyone knows, technically from a sudden cardiac arrest. That again, I said in the beginning, we have no trace of gene in our genetic makeup. And we didn't take a vaccine because I just felt, again, protecting Phoenix. I just didn't know about it well enough, so I didn't. And so that wasn't it. And there wasn't really anything hidden, although and he has some weird asthmatic things every now and then. But anyway, nothing major. And so she's coming around. The heart looked great. What started it was actually the first thing that healed. His heart was pumping. He needed no heart surgery, nothing. He had no broken bones. He had no surgeries, nothing. And now we're dealing with an anoxic brain injury, because he had gone down for 57 minutes without oxygen to his brain. They said it takes 7 minutes for the brain to die. You have hope if it's 7 minutes, but after 7 minutes, there's no hope. He was without a pulse for 57 minutes. So he had a global anoxic brain injury. They did an MRI. Most of it was gone. They said if one little shade hadn't been there, they would have called it brain dead, and he would have been taken off immediately. But there was one little light, one little white piece still left there that they couldn't technically call it. So they're all talking about that. What do we do? Do we do another MRI? And Ben, out of nowhere, goes, Doctor, I must ask you a question. She goes, did you say mustache? Like, instead of must ask. He goes, I must ask you a question. Just so dumb. It's just dumb, okay? And she kind of was like, and she's a little too serious for that. So I was like, honey, that's the wrong crowd, man. That's wrong crowd. That's 5th grade. Go to 5th grade, but that's wrong crowd here. And all of a sudden, she's like, they're all in their notes, and I'm like, we're all here. And she looks up and she goes, is Phoenix smiling? And this is Phoenix. He didn't just smirk so they could call it away, explain it away. He didn't just smile. If you've ever seen Zoology, he was the sloth that smiled real big. And it was so big you couldn't mistake it. And it was the one thing that told her, she said to all the medical students around, she said, you don't get that joke if your brain isn't turned on. They were looking for reflexes. They were looking for fingers moving, knees bopping, having to feel pain and wincing. They didn't get any of that. The one thing that, and they explained it away when they did see something like that. They explained it away. Oh, that's just rigor mortis or I don't know, whatever. But what you can't explain away is a brain being turned on through a joke you can't understand if it's not. So that changed his whole case plan to keep alive, to Thoreau, inpatient. Now we went from get the parents to understand he's not coming back to let's get him out the bed so he can go to Thoreau from a joke. Don't question how God wants to do it. Just know that he is doing it. Don't question God when he wants to do it. When you say, where are you? Where have you been? Why so long? He's going, because actually I care about the process that's happening in you during this than actually what the outcome is. Phoenix loved the Lord, but he wanted to be a businessman and make a lot of money because he saw us struggle. So he was like, I'm going to serve the Lord, but I'm going to serve him with buckets of money. True, if you're called to that. Phoenix wasn't called to that. He was called to the ministry. His first and foremost adoration should be God's heart. But he wanted to serve God with things God wasn't interested in for him at the time. And Phoenix would be, because he's so smart, he wanted to go to Harvard. He wanted to go to these colleges that I just feel in my spirit God saved him from something he would have veered off to. Vain imaginations and empty philosophies that we see us at war with now in our nation. You got to understand when Phoenix actually woke up, the miracle here is that everything was intact, but he had dystonia in his arms and he couldn't speak. So it affected his walk, affected his arms. But who Phoenix was, his personality, is 100% intact. He's able, he still uses huge words, but on his iPad to talk to me. So he communicates through his iPad, but he's like, I'm waiting for the day God said that I would recover all. And that's going to be the word and so he's like, I am back with the Lord so strong. I don't know if I had a heaven experience. I don't need a heaven experience. I just know that whatever happened, I said, are you mad at God? He goes, no, Mom, this had to happen. God is a jealous God. He will get my generation one way or another. He will get your children one way or another. And he said, and he knew what I needed to come back to him. And this is going to make me stronger. He promised to save me. He promised to heal every limb. I don't know God's timing. I just know he will. This is from a kid who just turned 18 years old. He said, and God told me I'm supposed to write a book, Joy in Suffering. Joy in spite of suffering. Can we write that book? Are you joyful in your suffering? I'm learning to be joyful in my suffering for my son. Because I had a come to Jesus moment afterwards. It started to hit me what just happened, and that warrior went away, and I was like, how dare you? I had another moment that was messy. I didn't threaten being a stripper this time, though. I didn't. So we got past that point. But it wasn't pretty, but he allowed it. He said, I'm still here. Work it out. Work out your grief. This is the word he shared me. And I'm only going to paraphrase it because I know we got to get on with our day. But this is important. If we're going to make a shift, you can't rush a shift. We keep rushing in church, and we're rushing right past our healing. We're rushing right past our breakthrough. We're rushing right past what we need. Sorry. It comes in 1 Samuel when David came back from battle. So he's already been on the war field. I feel like I've already been at war. Now I'm in a bigger war. You know, it's like, what? Lord, give me a break. Somebody needed to hear that honesty just now. Lord, give me a break. 1 Samuel 30. Now it happened when David came back to his hometown, Ziklag. This is when I said, I don't need a word in my head. I need the word in the word. Back it up, Lord. Back it up. I was a little bit gritty with it. Back it up, Lord. He goes, oh, I will. So they attacked it, and they burned it with fire, and they took everything captive. Now, they didn't kill it. They didn't kill their wives. They didn't kill their children. They didn't kill everything. They just took everything. They just took them all, ransacked their lives, and burned the rest down to the ground. All of it was lost. So David and his men came to the city, and there was burned with fire. Their wives, their sons, their daughters had been taken captive. Then David and the people who were with them lifted up their voices, and they wept until they had the power to weep no more. Me and my husband got to that point. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him. Because you know, when it's been a while, you get mad at folks. You get mad at the pastor. You get mad at the prayer team. You get mad at your husband. You get mad at your other kids when things are not happening like they should happen. You want to blame. You're turning on somebody. Because it says the hearts of the people were grieved. They weren't turning on people because they were grieved. Grief had now turned to anger. But David, what did he do first? He strengthened himself in the Lord. That's what I had to do in the hotel room. Strengthen him, and then he inquired of the Lord, Lord, shall I pursue who did this to me and us? Shall I overtake them? So shall I pursue? Shall I overtake? And will you give me the victory? The Lord said, you shall pursue, you shall overtake, and this is where the promise is, and this is where the promise is for you today. And without fail, you will recover all. He didn't say some. He said pursue. What does that mean for you? So you ain't just resting on the cow eating bonbons. Pursuing is not bonbon eating. It's not watching 90 Day Fiancé or Love is Blind. Although every now and then, no. But it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's not going through Mardi Gras through life until he comes through and we recover. No, he said pursue your enemies. Who is our enemy? It is not our neighbor. It is not flesh and blood. It is not the doctor that said it was out hope. It is not your husband. It is not your wayward child. It is not your pastor. It is not that person who talks so bad about you. Who is it then? It is powers and principalities in high places. That is darkness, and it's after your faith. It is that simple. It is after your faith. You lost your son. Oh, does she still have faith? You lost a leg. Oh, does she still have faith? That cancer came back, but does she still have faith? Will I still find it on the earth? Joy and suffering. He says, tribulations will come, Pastor, but behold, I have overcome. And because I have, you do too. We don't need to see a world full of get rich, have nothing to fight for, have nothing to pursue, have nothing to war for. No, he's saying your biggest testimony is how you overcame. How did you overcome, ma'am? You've been through the ringer. How have you overcome? Say it.
The man upstairs.
The man upstairs. Ma'am, he's saying, you come back to me, and I will make you have a come back. Come back, and I will make you have a come back. But none of us in this room can come back without the man who's allowed us everything in our lives to come back. We have to go back to him. Go back to the drawing board. Stop listening to YouTube. Stop listening to doctors. Stop listening to every other leader on the face of the planet. And the pastor, if they're willing, say, don't even listen to me. What is God saying?